Okay, peeps. So here you can see on the screen is the dashboard of the Kindle Direct Publishing, uh, which pertains to Amazon Publishing. Now you can see that it's got figures here, and it's got the revenue which I will receive on the left, the orders in the middle, and the Kindle pages which have been read. Um, and apparently I get some sort of revenue from that. But what it's got down here that since I've been doing this promotion, there's been 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 13, 14. 14 books um, purchased, and down here it states which ones. And so, A Journey to the South over on the left there, 9 uh, books sold, hard copies. Close to God, 4. And then it's got these pages read on Kindle, where you pay by the page or by, I don't know how that works, to be fair, people. And then it gives you this. So you can see that what I was saying about, if people want to, if people want me to labour very long and hard in the finest of details about my one whole year in 7 United States of America incarceration facilities, correctional facilities, then I'm going to need a little bit of money to buy the packages, which I'm going to need to write the book. Because if I'm going to be speaking about it, thinking about it, and it's going to become my life again, then it makes perfect sense that I'm going to be writing down very similar to what I put in the videos, if not in more depth. But that's going to be pretty arduous, and I'm not taking that task upon lightly, because the book is probably going to be as extensive as the first book I wrote, which is 650 pages. It took me 8 months to write, people, about 5 hours every single day. It's not easy. And so I'm not going to feel that I'm at liberty to be able to furnish you with such great stories if you're not prepared to muck in a little bit. So it shows here that 13 people have bought the book since I started to promote. Now, you, the viewer, um, when we look at the hits on my videos, it's averagely about 200 hits. So ratio-wise, the book sales have done very, very well. Because when I go over here and I see what's been sold, then there's 103 books sold. But then I've sent out I think probably about another 7 or maybe 10 signed copies. So there's been 110 or 113 books sold. Now, that's 50% of my regular viewers. And so that has to be a good number. But of course, in real terms, 110 books is minuscule. It is said that the average book, which is advertised on Amazon, will sell about 250 copies in its lifetime, unless you seriously exhaust your avenues of advertisement. Now, if I had like Twitter and um, Facebook and X, whatever they call these different sorts of social medias, and I was putting up 1-minute videos telling them about go onto my YouTube channel and you can see the full video for free, and I could advertise my book there. Then if I made a job of it, then doubtless I'd get a wage. But I don't need a wage, and I don't need a job, and I don't want a job, and so I don't do any of that stuff, people. But you know for a little community like what we've got here, with lots of long-term viewers, It's a bit like a social club. It's as social as I'm going to be getting in any case. And so, that is about as far as I want to take any of this. I think what's the point in having, tens or hundreds of thousands of, views on Twitter or something like that from people that you don't know, or you probably never will know, and all these sort of things. It's just numbers, isn't it, people? I'm not interested in numbers. So that's what you can see what's going on there. And it isn't enough. There's going to need to be about 40 more sales, but I don't think we're going to be getting there, because if we were going to be getting there, then you would have thought we'd at least be on about 30 by now. So I think you are going to be failing yourselves, because you've not wanted to invest or pay a little bit, into the kitty, for hundreds of hours of me, reciting the incredible psychological headfuck of what it is to be in American penal institutions. But bearing in mind that the vast majority of you are actually brain dead, and you don't have a single clue what that means psychologically. You've got no idea at all. You've seen a picture here and there, and you think, "Oh, prison full of bad people," but you don't know anything about the potential terror or the psychological trauma, and all the rest of that just being taken off the streets and put in one of these institutions, knowing not from day to day, what's going to happen to you. You could get into a fight, you could hurt somebody, you could end up on a lifer, all different sorts of things. It's very, very traumatic potentially. And what prisons are doing these days, they're not standing for people attacking people. They prosecute you, and they're very, very thorough in their investigation and all the rest of it. And of course, they've got cameras everywhere, and they'll get witnesses. Everybody will turn coat on you. And so, if you go into prison, let's say what I did for 1 year, if you're unfortunate, you probably never end up coming out. Because there's so many potentials of getting into fight with very, very dangerous people, and you literally are going to be fighting for your life, because when they come for you, they're going to be coming for you with a tool, because that's what it's like in prison. Or they're going to be coming for you with 5 or 6 of them, and they're going to be stamping on your head, this sort of thing. That's how it is in prison. There's no valor in prison. There's no respect. It's cowardice, and it's evil at its height. But it appears that you don't want to know about the psychological facet of what it is to be incarcerated, and so there you have it, people. But I will give one last ditching attempt, reading again from the content of my book. This is the only one I'm promoting these days, because this is the title which I'm much more settled and happy with, and I think most of you people are too. But in this book here, you see, the first book was called Closer to God. And most of you by now will realize that I have absolutely no affinity with the Hebrew God. I have no affinity with Jesus as being God. I have no affinity with any God whatsoever which manifests in a human form, or is some sort of entity, like the creator of a simulation, which is doing all this stuff, and what have you. I don't have an affinity with that at all. What I have is what my being, my spirit, my soul tells me, that I am God. Consciousness is God. I share consciousness. So that is what God is. God is consciousness. God isn't the body. God isn't Aaron Berry or any of this so-called physical stuff, because there's no physical reality here at all. And lots of people will always contest that, because you don't know. You haven't done the research. You haven't had the experiences, and you've got no idea. All that is going on in your world is that things appear to be real. Well, you go into your dream, and things appear to be real in your dream also, don't they? So that's a no-brainer if you ask me. So this is a waking dream as opposed to the sleeping dream. They're both not real. And so soul spirit goes on to have an existence which is a different variety of realness. And we are that. We are consciousness. And so during my 12 months incarceration, I spent 6 solid months investigating the efficacy of the Christian faith, because I'd already read the Bible in its entirety from cover to cover twice. I'd listened to thousands and thousands of biblical scholars, and I'd read many other Christian and religious books. And I really did want to get to the bottom of what is this God business all about. And so I launched myself upon an investigation, investigating what I could possibly know from within me, from my consciousness, from my sentience, discovering my soul, my spirit, the agencies which reside within me, good and bad, and benevolent and malevolent, and different varieties of spirits coming and going, and all this different sorts of stuff. And I write about all this stuff in my book. And for anybody that's on the spiritual journey and is intelligent, then it would be an absolutely fascinating read. But it appears that the vast majority of you out there who have read the book are not really that intelligent. And you can't read between the lines. You have no experience of your own about these things. None of this stuff really means anything to you because you're not philosophers. You have to be philosophers at your heart, people, to be able to get your head around what I've written here. Otherwise, you'll just glide through. You just think, it's quite an interesting story. But the things I write about in here, the things I've experienced are absolutely massive as far as the human being is concerned. And if you really take on board what I'm saying here, how I'm investigating, then you too will make some very, very powerful discoveries about yourself. I don't believe that you're going to get this from any other book. Even this book I'm reading now, which is called The Spirit's Book, well, that's written from a Christian or Hebrew vantage. It's talking about the Hebrew God, and that's the God, and I don't have an allegiance to that at all, because I've delved vastly deeper than the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible, and I have seen where all of that stuff has derived from. It derives out of human consciousness, not a God. It derives out of consciousness, that being the closest we could term as a higher being, because we don't know anything about it. So if we don't know anything about it, we don't know where it comes from, and we accept that everything is created via our consciousness, then that must be the creator, so that must be God. But he doesn't have a name, he doesn't have an essence. And lots of people have spoken about that variety of God, like the philosopher Spinoza. He was a Jewish philosopher, and he refuted the efficacy of the Bible with the Jewish God, and he says that God, as far as he is concerned, is the essence of the cosmos. And it is in everything, and it is everything, and everything derives out of it. And so I don't believe he mentioned consciousness being God, but that's what everything derives out of. If there was no consciousness, then there would be nothing discernible here. So God has to be consciousness. So that's what I'm speaking about in this book. And I'm looking into how Christians think, and how Muslims think, and how Orthodox Jews think, and the things they have an adherence to. And I'm asking these sort of questions. Why does God make it so difficult for us to enter his kingdom? I'm assuming that there is a God. Okay, let me just assume that there is a God. This thing's been around for, a couple of thousand years. And so is there something that I don't know? I have to assume that, there's something that I'm missing. And so let me see if I can investigate it and discover what that was by adhering to all of the criteria which they tell us that we must do if we're going to find God. What is that? It's faith, people. So I needed to investigate what is faith. So first and foremost, I write about why does God make it so difficult for us to enter the kingdom. And I'll just read the first paragraph. Probably the most significant point of bewilderment regarding anything that Jesus has deemed to have said was in his final commandments. Jesus had final commandments, people, which overrode the 10 commandments of the Father. The second and last set, of course. This has been a bone of contention since the compilation of Scripture. How is it possible to love our neighbours as we love ourselves? How could that very tall order even remotely be feasible? And what exactly does love thy neighbour mean? Love the person who is living next door to us? Do you love the people who live in the neighbouring country? Even our arch enemies? Or all three? Do we love those? Where within the human heart has that ever been remotely possible? Jesus told us to love thine enemy also. Basically, we are asked to love the whole of humanity as we would our own children. Well, even the most devout of believers and followers of the Christian faith have had issue with that request forever and a day. And if you read what biblical scholars have said about love thy enemy, they can't get their heads around it. They just do not know what that means. And it most certainly isn't possible. And so we have to ponder these things, and we have to try to get to the bottom of the psychology of where this stuff comes from, and that's what I do. Effectively, I'm a scholar. I'm being a scholar, a biblical scholar, a religious scholar, a psychoanalytical scholar. I'm investigating as deeply as I possibly can into all these things. And so the last two commandments, what Jesus left his disciples, was to love God with all of your soul and to love thy neighbor. And so love everybody then. Just love, isn't it? Just love. And I speak about love. I write extensively about what love is in here, people. For those of you that, wouldn't have a clue really, you would never have investigated what love is, well, let me help you along that line. And guaranteed, every single subject that I cover in this book, there wouldn't have been any of you which have really investigated this as thoroughly as I have done. And so if you want to really learn something, then you'll read the book. Now, I speak about the power of giving penance or confession. I ask myself, what is in confession? How would it work? Does it work? And so I launch into it and I do it. I perform it and I try to have as much belief in it as I absolutely possibly can. And then I ask myself, well, if I confess to myself, is that any different to confessing to Jehovah? Or is it any different to me confessing to the cosmos? What is the difference? And I discern that there is no difference. It's just the act of accepting to yourself that you have wronged and you want to be forgiven. You want to emancipate yourself of the burden, of the guilt, of the shame, of the social imposition, of you being a bad guy, all these different sorts of things. Nobody wants to carry that weight around. So if you accept and if you apologize, then that is very, very emancipating and it works. So confession works, but you don't need to be a Catholic and you don't need to confess to a Catholic priest to get the same result, people. So that in itself is very, very powerful because that makes obsolete the Catholic Church. And in here, I make the Catholic Church and any religion completely and utterly obsolete when I guide you into yourself, because it is you, yourself, which is God, which is the cosmos, because the cosmos is created via your consciousness and other conscious entities. And every single thing you see is derived out of your consciousness. It's a projection of your cosmic God consciousness. It's probably too deep for the vast majority of you. That's why none of you have ever got back to me. There's only one person that's ever got back to me on discussing this book out of 110 that actually have it in their possession. And so don't you think that's shocking, people? Don't you think that if you don't really want to engage with somebody of my caliber investigating all this stuff, if you don't want to do that, then you are vacuous. Your consciousness is very, very narrow, and the discovery of such deep and profound philosophical, spiritual questions is of no relevance to you because your consciousness doesn't expand to allow that to be so. Does prayer work? Well, if some people go, oh yes, prayer works, and Jesus fulfilled my wishes, or God did, well, I mean, you can believe that if you want to. But I didn't believe that. And so I tried both. I tried all these things. I tried praying to Yahweh, Jehovah. I tried praying to Jesus. I tried praying to the cosmos. I tried praying to myself. And I discovered that there's absolutely no difference in any of them, because what we are doing is we are reiterating our desires, what we want. And this body and this brain, this consciousness is the miracle that's going on here. There's no miracle out there, people. There's no miracle in Jesus or God or any of that bullshit, because all that comes out of the miracle here, human consciousness, which created all that. Without human consciousness, that shit wouldn't even exist. And so, those of you that don't want your faith burning, don't be reading this fucking book. How does God answer our prayers? I discuss several instances which are very, very bizarre, very peculiar, very psychological, and again, all roads lead to Rome, people. Everything has to come back to consciousness. It can't come back to you as individuals because you're a fiction. It can't come back to God because God's a fiction. It can't come back to Jesus because Jesus is a fiction. Everything's a fiction. The only thing human beings have never, ever, ever been able to deny is consciousness. So consciousness has to be fundamental. So consciousness has to be God. And everything that came out of consciousness, gods, devils, demons, and all the rest of it, have to be a fiction of consciousness. Are you getting this, people? You know, some people go, oh, you're always getting angry, Aaron, you're always getting frustrated. Well, that's because I'm dealing with fucking numpties, aren't I? I'm dealing with numpties because you've never given this stuff any fucking thought. And some of you think you're fucking profound thinkers, and lots of you have always reckoned that you know more than I do. And I'm like, well, fuck me. I'm just dying to meet you. I'm dying to talk to you. But what happens? Fuck all happens. That's what happens, people. I speak about synchronicity, the power of synchronicity. How does synchronicity work? The power of meaningful coincidences, the benefits of believing in God. There are benefits because the fool benefits from believing in God. The intelligent person doesn't benefit at all because the intelligent person doesn't believe in God. The intelligent person doesn't believe. It has to know. The intelligent person has to know. We have to have something which tells us that that is our personal subjective knowledge. And if we don't have that, we don't fucking believe. So anyway, and if you want prison stories, well, there's lots of prison stories in here under the guise of not being told as being prison. There's only one occasion in this book where I have amended what I've said because I never spoke about being in prison in here. But then I went back and I did amend it because when I encountered the concept of demons, the devil, in a very, very profound way for, let's say, you know, the first 6 months of being incarcerated, but most profoundly in the first 1 month, and then lesser 2 months, and then lesser 3 months. It really was a battle with the devil, people. And so if you want to know what a battle with the devil is like, then you can read it in here. If you want to know what happens when I pray to Jesus and God, you can read it in here. If you want to know how I analyze myself in many, many scenarios, then again, it's all in here. And then I look about what the concepts of what Christ is supposed to have said in relation to judging. Judge not. What does it really mean not to judge? If you haven't ever contemplated these things, if you haven't ever studied them, if you haven't ever listened to scholars who speak about these things and thought about them yourselves, well, I shouldn't wonder if this book won't mean anything to you, because this book is really vastly too deep for most individuals. And so I will look forward to hearing from anyone that can make head or tail of it. I'll be all obliging to have Google Meet conversations with you to discuss the depth of all of these things I'm speaking about. Now, even just something like having an out-of-body experience, what actually is going on when you have an out-of-body experience? Is it a dream? Is it a fantasy? Is it a wish come true? Do we actually go into another conscious dimension? Is there parallel universes with these demons in, or entities, and all different sorts of people, creepy things, shadow beings, beautiful human beings, all these? What is going on? Well, I speak about it in this book because I've experienced this stuff, people. So, for those of you that still won't manage to spend £20 on this incredible book, well, you're cutting your own nose off to spite your own face. It's Christmas time, people, and so be kind to yourselves. And if you think you want to know about the world and about yourself, and you're on the spiritual journey, well, you're going to need the first world spiritual Bible then to deal with that shit, people. That's what I'm telling you. So, the book, it can be read in just small headings. Divine revelation versus various other paranormal theories. So was something divinely revealed to you, or could it have been this, or could it have been that? Could it have been a fantasy? Could it be a projection of our own consciousness? Could it be other spirits or demons, or given this? Because there's all speak about don't believe that and don't believe that. There's all these demons out there, and there's only one true God, and Jesus, pray to Jesus, 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 Jesus. But the fact of it is that there's a billion gazillion fucking facillion, to coin a new term, for the enormity of conscious entities that are within consciousness. Within consciousness, people. And it is said that some of them are malevolent, some of them are benevolent, some of them are tricksters, some of them this, some of that. It's all a projection of human consciousness. Because when I'm reading this spirits book, every single thing they're saying about spirits is exactly the same as a human being. And so, look, what can we do? We can't create anything outside of human consciousness. We can't look outside in this massive cosmos and into all these different sorts of things. We know not what 96% of the cosmos is. So within that 96%, the chances are there's a lot of stuff we don't know anything about. In actual fact, because we don't know anything about it, then, it's kind of like Russian dolls. It's stuff we don't know about in stuff we don't know about in stuff we don't know about, and all that stuff forever and ever and ever. So what do we do as human beings? The only thing we can do, stop assuming that we know any fucking thing about this cosmos, because we don't. And all we do is create what our humanism tells us to do. Well, we're seemingly human beings, so God we create in our own image, the devil we create in our own image, with cock and pussy, and a red face, put a red face on him, or put a tail on him because he's very animalistic, or put fangs on him, put horns on him, because that's, again, it's indicative of our animal nature. It's just a projection, people. Everything is a projection of consciousness. Are you hearing me on this? Are you appreciating what I'm saying to you? Or are you just not getting any of it? What's going on, people? What's going on? I do realise that I am the cosmos. I do realise that, And I'm speaking from the cosmos. And I'm speaking at such a deep and profound level, which is vastly over and above the vast majority of people's consciousness. Why is that? Is that my gift or is that my curse? I don't know. On this channel, it seems to be my curse. Anyway, as I've said, look, I get £4.75 or something like this. I get a pittance. It costs a lot to produce this book. If I want to send this book to someone in the UK, it costs £5. If I want to send it in Europe, it costs £18. If I want to send it to America or somewhere like that, a signed copy, then chances are it's going to cost £30. And so, as far as things being expensive, a book which has 250,000 words for £20 is nothing. It's a fucking pizza, people. So get things in perspective. And what you could gain from that, what you could glean from that, you could keep reading this book over and over and over and over and over again, and you'll be gleaning more and more and more as your consciousness grows. There is stuff about Brahman in here. There is stuff about all different sorts of conscious spiritual entities. There are excerpts from some of the greatest thinkers on the planet in relation to science, like the Big Bang and the simulation and Darwin's evolution, and going back to our own psychology with Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, and then many other philosophers, Plato, and a whole bunch of others, Spinoza, and there's a pile of shit in here. Compiled into one book is quite a feat. So anyway, people, I will not mention it again. It doesn't look like we're going to make these figures, so it looks like unless a good number of you get your asses in gear and buy this book before Christmas, then I won't be speaking about my prison sojourn. I'll probably stop making videos like I did for a whole 8 months whilst I was writing my other book, and then it'd be for sale. And then, if you want to know, you'll have to buy it in any case. So, you can't win, like you think you can, like getting it for free, because that isn't winning. That's despicable. That's disgusting. That's bordering on vile. If you just want to keep hanging out, oh, you'll give it to us in the end anyway for free, and that makes you a despicable asshole. It really does, and I've got no respect for you at all. You're like the pre-com on the end of an axe cock. You mean nothing. To be crass about it is vile. And for those of you that think, oh, I don't have the money, or I'm saving up, what sort of a life are you living? What sort of pitiful existence are you in that you can't, in a month's money, whether you're on benefit or working, what the fuck? £20? It's not even £1 a day. You could come home from work and you could put £1 in a fucking jar for 20 fucking days. And then you go, well, that's it. I've got the book. Well done. Fucking well done, mate. I used to be fucking head about that one. £1 a day in a fucking jar. For fuck's sake. Grow up, people. Grow up.